and welcome back to Just Jen Baking. We are still celebrating pumpkin spice season, so today I am making Live for Cake's pumpkin spice latte cake. That's right, pumpkin spice latte in the form of a cake. It does not get much better than this. One little change I'm making to the recipe is I'm going to add a cinnamon chip ganache into the layers. I'm not going to do a drip this time, but I thought it might be kind of fun to add a little more cinnamon flavor because is there ever enough? I don't think so. So, I have all of my ingredients all measured and set out, so we are ready to begin combining. We first have our sifted flour, and to that I'm going to add some pumpkin pie spice. I'm going to add some salt and some baking powder. And then on the other side of the counter, we're going to mix up all of our wet ingredients. And it doesn't really give me an order, so I'm just going to kind of dump them all in the stand mixer and have it go crazy. So we have both white sugar and brown sugar. We have some melted and subsequently cooled butter. We have some vegetable oil. Make sure this cake is super moist. And of course, you can't possibly make a pumpkin cake without pumpkin. And we have 3 eggs. And the recipe did not call for vanilla, but I'm going to add a little anyway. Because, I mean, it never hurt a recipe to add vanilla. So, there. I've made it my own. I'm a real baker now. I'm going to mix these guys together. Now I'm going to slowly add my dry ingredients. And this is a recipe that you really want to have basically just combined. You don't want to overmix. So this would actually be a perfect recipe to do if you don't have a stand mixer, because I'm really not going to even be using it for very long. Now, I only have 2 cake pans this time. This is going to end up being a 4-layer cake. So we are going to only bake it in 2 cake pans and then cut them in half once they're baked. I believe that's called tourting the cake. These are going to bake for about 35 to 40 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Ooh, that's good. Okay, so it has been about 35 minutes, so we're going to check on our cakes. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Look at that flat tops. Okay, our cakes have been cooling for about 10 minutes, so we're ready to flip them out onto our wire rack. And again, notice how flat those tops are. After that, we're ready to start our icing. We are making an espresso Swiss meringue buttercream. So the espresso is where this cake gets the pumpkin spice latte from. And then Swiss meringue buttercream can be a bit of a finicky frosting to make, but it is worth it. It is so silky and smooth. It's a dream to decorate with and a dream to eat, most importantly. So we are going to be attempting that. We have egg whites and we have some sugar. And it is regular granulated sugar, which might sound a little weird, but we are going to be cooking it over a hot water bath on the stove. So I've wiped down everything with a little bit of white vinegar. If you have any egg yolks, butter, any grease remaining on your whisk, your bowls, anything, it'll stop the Swiss meringue from whipping up into stiff peaks, so you need to be really careful about that. And to start, we're just going to whisk until combined a little bit. From here, we're going to go to our stove, and we are going to put it over a hot water bath and whisk constantly until the egg whites are cooked, and you'll know that because the sugar will no longer be grainy. So if you actually touch it, it'll feel nice and silky and smooth. And it might take a little bit of time, so you'll kind of be sitting here for a bit, and that's okay. That is the fastest I've ever done that. But this is now nice and smooth. We are now going to whisk these egg whites and sugar into oblivion until we have stiff peaks. We have stiff peaks, so huzzah. That has been going for probably 5 to 10 minutes. The bowl is now no longer warm to the touch, and again we have stiff peaks, which means it is time to change to our paddle attachment and start whipping in our butter. Now, the temperature of the butter is a little tricky because if it's too cold, it won't mix into the frosting. But if it's too warm and too room temperature, it'll almost heat up the meringue and make it start to separate and get kind of curdly. Now, if that happens, it's okay. You just have to put it in the fridge for maybe 15-20 minutes and re-whip it back up again. But if we can avoid that, it's kind of nice. So I basically brought this butter to room temperature and then popped it in the freezer for about 10 minutes. So we'll see if that works. So we are just a little curly, as you can see. That doesn't exactly look like an appetizing texture. So I'm going to pop this in the fridge for about 15 to 20 minutes and then try re-whipping again, and you will see how much that will fix it. Okay, this just got out of being in the fridge for about 15 minutes. I want to try to show you what it looks like. Not very appetizing right now. But once we whip it up, now that it's a little cooler, it should come together quite nicely. We've been going for about 5 or 10 minutes. Now we actually have what looks like frosting. So now that it's all come together, we are going to add our espresso. Oh, that smells really good. Oh, that's nice. Okay, our cakes have been in the fridge for about a half an hour, so they are ready to decorate. Our icing is nice and well whipped and smooth. We're ready to get started. I have my cake board on my spinner. I'm going to add a little bit of frosting to that, just so the cake has something to anchor it. I'm going to take our first cake. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a 4-layer cake, so I'm going to use my wire leveler to cut this in half. We just saw back and forth. And we have 2 essentially equal cake layers. If you have a cake lifter of some sort, this would be a good time to use it. Oh, look at that. That looks like pumpkin bread. And put a bit of frosting right on that layer. Take our next layer. And if we wanted to, we could try to cut off that top. I haven't decided if I wanted to. Let's see if I need it. We're going to go ahead and get a little bit of crumb coat on there. Remember, this is just to kind of lock in those crumbs. We're going to chill it, because you can see a lot of crumbs on there. We don't want those on the outside. It'll look kind of messy. So we do a crumb coat, lock them all in, and then we don't have to worry about them for our final coat. That's going to be actually the nice looking one. Now this is going to go in the fridge for about half an hour to chill and get nice and chilled, and then we will finish decorating. Alright, our crumb coat is nice and chilled, so we're going to go ahead and frost the rest of the cake. Now, when you want any sort of smooth sides, you really want to just add a lot of frosting, more than you think you need, because you're going to end up scraping a lot of it off. So just add a lot, scrape off. That's the plan. Alright. Okay, so my favorite part for this cake is yesterday I made some fondant pumpkins. Now, I don't normally play with fondant, but if these aren't the most adorable things I have ever seen or created, I don't know what are. This is my favorite side of the cake. So, put some pumpkins right next to it. And on top. Oh, look how cute they are. Oh my god. I can't believe I made those. Put him right there because he's cute. He has his own little spot. There. Isn't that the cutest thing? Oh, I am obsessed! Much as I am very tempted to not cut into this because I don't think I've ever created anything quite this adorable. I mean, look at the little I can't. Anyway, I'm tempted not to cut into it, but I have to. This is one of the few cakes that's not reserved for someone's birthday, so we get to get a cake shot. I don't even know where I want to cut. Oh, look at those layers. Oh man. Oh, that's gonna be so good. Okay, let's try this thing. Ooh. Oh, the espresso is just subtle enough, but it's there. I mean, the pumpkin cake tastes like pumpkin bread, which is one of my favorite things. The Swiss meringue buttercream is silky as all get out, with just a hint of espresso. This is legitimately a pumpkin spice latte in cake form. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna have the rest of this delicious. You should go make it. In the meantime, thanks for watching me make